Hey YouTube, Meef here. Welcome to episode 25 of our Feed the Beast Continuum Quick Tips, Tricks, and Shits. This time, kind of going over a few new machines that I've created, some of the larger tanks, and then going over the Jetpack real quick. So let's quickly take a look at. Let me get rid of this shit. Get the hell out of there. Get the fuck out of there. There we go. If you'll notice here, hanging off this refinery, I've got a couple different fluid tanks here. What you notice here is that there's 512 buckets available, so I've got just over 1,000 buckets of biodiesel stuffed into these tanks. Now you might be wondering, why in the hell did you do that? I've noticed that when I'm trying to process out titanium using the industrial blast furnace, I keep running out of energy, and even though these leadstone lines are saturated, it just won't keep up for me. So it's been kind of a pain in the ass trying to make machine frames and process out all this other shit over here. So what I've done is made a significantly larger buffer system. So the way this works is the output, this is just pumping out the front. This second connection here, I just didn't fuck with it. It works, so I leave it alone. But it's pumping it up into the top of this pipe into the top of the tank. So in the top of the tank is where you're going to dump any fluids that are going in, and it'll store. So on the bottom, there's actually 4 outputs, and I think you can technically do a 5th straight out the bottom. But the cool thing about these outputs is that this lever will control it. So if I had, say, really I just wanted to keep this left one as a reserve, I would flip this tank off, let this one run out, and then if I ever needed it, just flip the switch again and it would start transfer back into the other tank. Do note that in order for this setup to work, I actually had to pump this out the bottom and then push it up through the top. So you can see that through the bottom here, this is switched on, so this is allowing fluid out. It goes up, does its business, and goes up to the generator. Now, I don't know if I showed this last episode, but there's actually a redstone wire from Immersive Engineering, and you can see it. It's hanging off the redstone port on the generator. Now, these are just redstone wire connectors. They function the same as relays, so you just make some of these. But the way I've got this set up, and keep in note the switch orientation here. Right now this is set to off, but as soon as I turn this on, it cycles that generator up there. So keep that in mind, that's there for you. That'll just do its thing. Let's take a look at, let's see, we've got those over here. So let's take a look at this latex processing unit. The reason this is important is because it's making this tiny dry rubber out of latex. You combine these in a 3x3 crafting grid to get dry rubber, and then you put that into a furnace and smelt it out to get plastic sheets. If you look at what we've got for plastic, a lot of these machines from industrial foregoing require plastic. So for our mob imprisonment tool, which we're going to start working on a little bit here to see if we can come up with some more ender pearls, all require plastic. So the mob detector, that requires plastic. The duplicator, that also requires plastic. Slaughter factory, plastic. You know, it's pretty much all plastic. So you gotta have it. It's easy to process this out. Keep in mind that is latex. And there's something, and I know I saw it back here somewhere. Is it this son of a bitch? Yeah. It says right here, and they weren't kidding. It's a good idea to stock up on a lot of latex, and that is for a very damn good reason, because you need it for pretty much any kind of wire coating, plastic, making silicone. You have to have it. So there was an upgrade that I made. I had to do it, and you'll see here, this is a fluid tank. This is 512 buckets of fucking latex. Now I've got 4 tree juice fluid extractor units hanging up on top of this thing with the auto placer in the ceiling. So the auto placer, you can see the log right there. That's getting pushed right down into the center. All 4 of these guys will work on that log at the same time. So make this upgrade now. If you do anything else from this episode, do this. I'm not sure if this is going to be enough to kind of keep up with all the different machines, but just I would do this. 512 buckets should get you a long way. You can make a hell of a lot of wires with that, so you're not constantly have to use the stupid Empower to make circuits. So keep this in mind. It's helpful. Now let's go take a look. Since I've got a couple other thermal expansion machines, and let's talk about those real quick. The first 2 I did was the Magma Crucible and the Fluid Transposer. So if we were to put redstone in here, it would turn it into destabilized redstone. And I've got it set to go into the Fluid Transposer. I won't do a whole lot on this now, but just look at the configuration. Orange is output, so we take input through the top. It gets output into this tank. The internal or external switch here, if we set this to orange, it'll go into this tank, and I've got this set for blue-orange, but really it works if I were to set this straight blue, it'll end up in this tank. So you might be wondering why in the hell were those the first ones that I made. This Signalum, let's take a look at it quick. Signalum blend, we're looking at destabilized redstone bucket. It's not all that difficult to make, but it's got to be, we could do it through tanks. You can fill tanks, but you could do this right through the machine itself as well. So, alright, so we kind of talked about the new machines I made. Get the latex processing unit going, make some plastic. You could build these 2 machines, just throw them off to the side. I haven't done a whole lot with them. If you're kind of following along with Better Questing here, this thermal foregoing heading is kind of where I'm at. Kind of working on doing some of the mob stuff, mob crusher. This one's skeleton meat. You're gonna need this, I think, for some of the other machines. There's some pink slime in there, if I remember right. And then here's the auto farmer. So that stuff is there. I was looking at some of these other machines. The separators, I guarantee we're gonna need them, but I'm not sure in what order that is. So when I come back in the next episode or 2, we'll figure that out. Machine frames are expensive, like I said, so keep pulling in that bauxite. You're just gonna have to have it. Okay. So let's talk about jetpacks. Now, the jetpack that I'm using right now, it's the Leadstone. It's the very first one, base version. You can see the UI up in the top left corner there of the screen. Might be covered up a little bit by my logo there, but jetpack fuel's at 100%, and then engine. It's red right now because I've got the engine shut off, but I have hover turned on. Okay, let's take a look quickly at what it costs to build this thing. You are looking at 4 titanium in order to get started on these, so your leadstone thrusters require 2 titanium plates per. You do need 2 of them. The rest of this really isn't all that terrible. This flux capacitor, if you look at what's really in here, this thing really isn't all that complicated. You're just looking at some batteries. They are expensive, but they're not all that difficult to make. Otherwise, this in itself is not that expensive to make. What you should do right away, if you've got this jetpack on, go ahead and make your iron armor plating. This is just going to go into a rolling machine. You're looking at 5 iron, 4 tin. Make this. Take your jetpack and then take your armor, or your jetpack and your plating, excuse me. Put this into a grid like this. Come up with this. This will get you 5 armor. So you can see that it does show up like it's armored, and you're going to need it because if you don't use it, you won't have any armor. Just keep that in mind. You can power up this jetpack. It is run off RF. You can do this in the Energizer. It's kind of cool because the UI for your shit shows up on the right. You put it in the bottom. Once it's charged, it'll come back out, and there you go. You won't really even have to take it off your person. Like if you're gonna stand here, you can just do it right through the UI. You don't have to fuck around. I like it. It works well. Let's take a look at. I've got this triple battery here, and we're gonna do a little test while I'm dicking around with this. Drill's full. Let's just put this. We'll try and stop it right short of 195. Let's take a look at how this jetpack functions. Now, there's a few different options here. You're going to have to go into controls, and you want to go down to simply jetpacks. Where'd you go? You're going to have to rebind these. I've got these set on the number pad just because it's pretty easy to just keep your thumb on the space bar, because the jump key is what's going to make that function. But I flip with my right hand over to the number pad quick from the mouse just to shut this stuff on or turn it on or off. You'll see toggle engine or flux pack, and then hover mode. So reset those, bind them wherever you want. Now I've got mine set, so number key 8, jetpack enabled, you can see it. And right now I'm just holding in the jump key. Now I've got hover on, so it'll bring me down at a speed that won't kill me. And that's just doing its business. Now you can see I charged that battery at 195. You can fill this battery up, and it will recharge that fucking jetpack. So this, if you're gonna do this, you can get multiple of these batteries, and with this very initial jetpack, you can run the son of a bitch forever. You're limited by the amount of RF you can produce for your whatever trip you're taking with this bad boy. So keep in mind, hover mode, I've got that turned on. This will bring it down nice and easy. It won't kill you if we shut it off. And it does that. Now there is an emergency hover mode on here. It does not work with this first jetpack. So just keep that in mind. You could turn it on. I keep hover mode on. I just shut the engine off just so I'm not killing myself. The jetpacks, it's going to be handy. You're going to need it probably for picking up gas tiers. Until you can get one captured in a safari net or mob containment or whatever the fuck it was. Mob imprisonment tool is what it's called now. But you need a gas tier for these. You're going to need multiples because once you actually get processing these things, you're going to need multiples. It kind of helps to have one of each different type of mob. I like to have ghast and then enderman. You're going to need a shitload of ender pearls for making resonant stuff. So kind of keep that in mind for the future. Let's take a look at this jetpack outside real quick. I mean, it's not up and down. It's not the fastest. One of the things I did learn though is that if you start by running, you can get some pretty good launch off of here. And you can kind of see that it's not the fastest thing, but you're kind of out of the way of all the nasties. Kind of take a look at what the hell's going on up here. There's an Enderman right now. So the drain on this thing isn't too terrible. You can see that our triple battery here is recharging this thing, but we've burned up about 35,000 RF, but we kind of went a decent distance here. And the great thing about it is that when I jump off this bitch, hey, I'm not going to die anymore. So this is great if you're working high up, got your hover mode enabled. You don't have to worry about half killing yourself falling off your shit. So keep that in mind. Just don't forget to rebind your keys. You take it out the first time. Just kind of keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So, all right, I think that's it for this episode, since we kind of went over the new machines that I built and the jetpack. Like I said, get that fluid tank built. 512 buckets is pretty decent storage, and then get those extractors up on top of it and start making some latex, because you're gonna need it, lots of it. So, until next time.